Hey guys, it is Marcus here with Terry, and today we are doing our Talk Sober Talk on letter number 6. So how you doing, Terry?
I'm doing well. How are you, Marcus?
I'm doing all right, hanging in there. Been an interesting summer trying to get my work schedule and the kids' schedule and everything like that. In addition to baking in the hot sun with lots and lots of rain each and every afternoon. So that's always fun as well. So we're
Yeah.
going to go ahead and get this show on the road, and we're going to go over letter number 6. Now, letter number 6 is about returning to center. This is something that I call a return to center. Like when I get all out of whack and things aren't going right, I always like to come back to ground one or step one and just kind of be like, hey, you know what? It's time to return to center. It's time to check in and see where I'm at.
Yeah.
Terry, if you want to start off, do you have any experience with that? Like, what do you use to return to center?
Well, I start off by the beginning of my day, and when I wake up, I try not to let my brain take over, take over my thinking so much. Kind of hard to do, but I just try to be grateful for what I have today and make a plan for the day ahead, so that when things change, that I can adjust to those without freaking out and reacting instead of responding the correct way.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, let's go ahead and dive into this. Before we dive in, we got Mrs. Dog Lover, or Miss Dog Lover. She says she's been sober 25 days today, so awesome. Congrats.
Right.
I
Correct.
and Terry also know how difficult the first 30 days can be.
Yep.
And it can be very difficult because you're basically sobriety is learning a new way of life. I mean, you're learning a new way of life, a new way to cope with things, a new way to think about things and deal with things. And, sometimes we're not ready for that. And our brains are like, hey, you're not ready for that. You need to go back to drinking. And so to make it consecutively 25 days is a good accomplishment.
Right.
Same with making it the first day. Same with just deciding, hey, this is enough. I'm done. I want to stop, and I want to change my life for the better. So, really good. Let's go ahead and dive right in. This is letter number 6. You can find these letters over at talksober.com. Just put your name and email in the box, and we'll send them out to you. We send them, I think we have them set up to go day by day. So, you can get them there. All right, so letter number 6 is called Return to Center, What to Do When Life Just Sucks Ass. All right, so it says, Dear friend, let me start off by saying that quitting drinking does not magically solve all your life's problems, give you a bigger paycheck, and fill your life with fluffy puppies and rainbows. However, if you follow along with these letters and really take this stuff to heart, you will get a brand new perspective on life, and not drinking will allow you to see things for what they really are. You see, there's this huge problem I had when I was drinking. I couldn't tell the difference between life as it was, life as I described it, and life as I wanted it to be. Let me explain what I mean. When I was drinking, even before that, this is one of those core things that just kind of went with me from the get-go. I had a certain outlook based on my belief systems. My belief systems told me what I should have, what I should do, what I should be, and how others are supposed to act and treat me, and how I was supposed to live in the world. I had expectations on top of my expectations. These people should respect me. Those people should look up to me. The tellers at the bank should spend extra time with me and do what I want because I run millions of dollars through that bank. The IRS people should call me personally and give me a break because I help create people jobs. My wife should do what I say, desire me all the time, not yell, and my kids should think that I'm the greatest person alive. Now, if the average person has 40,000 thoughts each and every day, as experts say, at least 39,900 of my thoughts were about me, were about what I wanted, what I felt, what I needed, what I expected. And it's amazing how much of my day is spent thinking about me. All of my thoughts of myself and expectations were all about life as I described it. You see, we go through our lives with a narrative behind the scenes. It's like there is this guy with the voice in the movie saying what's going on as things happen. Like in those old 80s movies where the kid is saying the story from his adult point of view and all that stuff. That's going on in our minds on a minute-to-minute basis. Thousands of words spoken each and every day about what should have been, what should be, and what is. But we are never really living in the real now. Here's what my narrative sounded like back then. I made a successful business. People should step aside because I'm a little more important than the average person out there. Most people are just lazy and don't want to work. I make things happen. Or, I read all about mental health and therapy and self-help all the time. Therefore, I know more than most people about how the mind works and how to help others. I have a brilliant mind and I think differently than my fellow humans, and therefore I'm more valuable than the average mindless TV watcher out there that doesn't. Or, when it comes to politics and issues in life, my opinions are a bit smarter than the average person. And on top of all this stuff that was keeping me locked in the prison of my own mind and unhappiness, I went so far as to give meaning to the things when this stuff did not happen. Why my wife does not do everything I say while worshiping the ground I walk on. This means she doesn't like me and is not a good person. Something must be wrong with me for sticking around, or perhaps my wife has reason not to like me. I do have my problems. The people around me do not agree with my political point of views. That must mean they're either stupid or just don't really pay attention. Or, my customers and students don't do exactly as I teach. This must mean either I'm a terrible teacher or they're horrible people who just should shut up and do what I say regardless. I even did this kind of thing for all the mental illness issues that arose and were made a lot bigger with my drinking. It went like this, and these are the narratives that went in my mind that explained what my life was like. And pay attention, because a lot of times we have these. One, because I have this body-crippling anxiety and cannot leave the house without downing a few bottles of booze. That means something's wrong with me and I'm probably going insane. Or, the fact that I have bad thoughts enter my mind must mean that I'm defective and God hates me. Or I hate him, or something like that. 3, because my wife doesn't want me anymore and wants to argue, must mean that I'm unattractive, ugly, or just not what she wants. She must not love me anymore, and why not? Look at me. Or 4, admitting I'm an alcoholic, I mean I'm weak and filthy, like one of those assholes in the park with old shoes and dirty clothes who can't even join in and be a productive member of society. It's exhausting even thinking about these old thought patterns that I used to have. Sometimes they still creep in today. Just yesterday, my wife and kids were talking about how someone else's house was big and they were rich and they had big TVs and everything like that. And mind you, this is just after I got out of the mess I made while drinking. Moved us across the country and bought another house. They all said that they want it. Then they have the audacity to go talk about other stuff. I mean, come on. It's only been 4 months since we moved and you wanted a big house. You should have said so I could have bought one. And remember that the things I have are someone else's prayers. So keep that in mind. Somewhere out there's a family praying for enough to afford a house as big as mine, a job as great as mine, and all the things life has that I have. And when you really, really get down to it, one can only watch one TV at a time and enjoy about 8 square feet of a house at a time, and really only enjoy one roast beef at a time. So here's the deal. We have these expectations of what life should be. I think that because I got a house and I'm proud of myself for climbing my way through this alcohol and all this junk and actually getting us back on the right track after my whole nervous breakdown suicide attempt, that everyone else should feel the same way and walk around praising me for all the wonderful things that I did. I think that because I do work all day, my wife gets to stay home, she should help out and do more for the family. And you know what? Sometimes these thoughts are right. And it's true that my hard work provides stuff, but am I happy? The real cold, hard truth is that when I don't get what I expected, my pride and ego get hurt, and I feel bad, and it starts the loop of thoughts. You see, your thoughts are like little rivers taking little paths and moving around and around, and when I give them an inch, they take a mile. When I cave in and say, oh man, my kids aren't happy, I should get a mansion, my wife wants better cabinets, right now it's just too much, I must be a shitty businessman. Then my thoughts race down the path that's easy and familiar. Pour me another drink because I'm going to wallow in my own self-pity. Because my true worth is all external at this point. That is, I get my value from outside myself. And when I don't get what I want and things don't go as I planned, I feel defeated. This is how society has trained us, unfortunately, and it's really bad. Just look at the celebrity worship in our culture. We look up to these people as pillars. After all, if you make millions and drink yourself into oblivion every night, that's called winning. If you treat everyone around you poorly and make a living by putting others on the street, somehow you're a good business person, or dare I say it, even the president. Our society places values on things like money, material stuff, toughness, and false strength made in putting others down. It's no wonder people look at admitting an addiction or that one is an alcoholic as admitting serious weakness. After all, if I cannot handle my liquor, I must be the weakest person alive. So let's look at these expectations, beliefs, and values we have. Let's look at how strong we are as people. This helps me stay sober every minute of every day. Remember, your mind is like a lens and you get what you focus on. So the best way to deal with these thoughts is not to fight them, but to redirect them as they come in. So first of all, if you have trouble admitting you're an alcoholic or problem drinker, or whatever you want to call it, remember that even the best, toughest human on earth can be brought to his knees and die without having air for 20 minutes. Even the biggest, toughest person, 20 minutes without air, he's gone. Even the most calm and cool person can lose his cool in some situations. And the richest man alive could be made poor with one stroke of a pen. The most sane person could be made crazy with enough solitary confinement or torture or whatever. We are not as strong as we let ourselves believe. Let's see here. There we go. Where'd we go? We are but a tiny speck on a rock we call Earth. That is another tiny speck in the vast universe that we can even begin to pretend to know the size of. Bottom line, I am one of 8 billion people. And when I have a bad day or I don't get what I deserve, I have to remember this fact and remember how insignificant my goals and dreams really are in the grand scheme of things. And when I live from this place, I'm actually able to make a much bigger difference in the world. I know when I have a bad day, these are the things that I want to think about. Because it's easier to wallow in pity, blame others, and talk about how bad it is. Truth be told, no matter what's going on, you're going to be okay right now. No matter how bad the world seems to crash in on you, you are okay. Will you be okay tomorrow, the next day, or in 50 years? We just don't know that. All we can do is take care of right now. And right now, what do you want to do? Do you want to be right, or do you want to be okay? Because there's plenty of people out there who run their lives on how right and how justified they are when things don't go their way. I was one of them. They were right. They are right. But they are usually not really happy in their core being. The essence of what we've been talking about in this letter is control. We lose our cool when we feel we are not in control of situations. And these mental games, OCD thoughts, and wallowing in self-pity are all about trying to control our little world. But you just learned above, or probably knew deep down, that we cannot control jack shit. I can't even control my basic daily needs. So much for being the great and wonderful wizard of my world. So now it's time to let go. Like the Serenity Prayer says, which I hated at first because it reminded me of all them damn AA people and preachy stuff. But it says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. This talks about minute-by-minute acceptance. Life, we talked about above, how we are always looking at life as we think it is, life as it was, and life as we want it to be. Life as it was is something we cannot change. The past is past. I had to learn this the hard way, that I am not the sum of my thoughts. I am not defined by the things I have done, and I'm not defined by the things that have been done to me. There are people in life who have been through horrible, horrible things in the past. They can't change these things, but they define themselves by them. I did this for years. I was the victim of bullies, of child abuse, of the government, everything else I came up with. Sure, some of these things were really, really bad. Sure, they made me feel really bad. And yes, I was right in feeling like injustice was done. But I was stuck, and it affected every area of my life. And I hated when people said, just let it go, man. Just get over it. Because it made me feel like letting go made the abusers and bad people win and be justified in wronging me. Then I learned that we never really let go of something or get over it. That never happens. What we do is we move through it. And learning these things, I was able to move through my issues, accept them for what they are and my part in them, even if my part is just accepting that I can't change them, and choosing to define myself based on me, not on things outside me. I used to wallow in how I thought life was. I believed no one cared for little Marky, and that's why bad things happened. And no matter where you are, where you came from, or what you did, or what was done for you, now is a new moment in time to take a breath and accept. Accept the things you cannot change. Stop giving meaning to things in the past and carrying them with you daily. And take things you can change. You can change this moment right now. You can choose to love and accept yourself for being who you were based on your situations you had no control of. Like the people reacting in harsh situations. Sometimes they're just unable to see choices, and we cannot fault them for that. All of your drinking, all of your past thoughts, all of your situations have brought you to where you are right now. And I accept that. Can you? Can you accept yourself for being human? Can you love yourself for being normal? Because at the end of the day, no matter what we do, it's all self-pride. Whether you wallow in self-pity and feel better about it because self-pity is a masked version of self-worship, or whether you decide to love and accept yourself for where you are right now, have the courage to change what you can now that you are armed with new information. And know the difference between what you can and cannot do, and also what you will not do. But that's for another letter, where we talk about Marcus, the control freak. Till next time, still love you, still accept you for being human, and I'll keep writing you. Unless your ass falls off, don't drink, and I'll see you tomorrow. Marcus. All right, so that was a mouthful. What'd you think?
Right on, Marcus. Awesome letter. First of all, hey, Naomi, great to see you again. 102 days sober today. Awesome. And happy 41st birthday. That's just great. That's huge. You know, the 25 days sober for Miss Dog Lover and Naomi, 102 days, you can do it. Never have to drink again. This letter, you know, talks about, to me, it talks about a couple of things. Obviously, the first thing is the control in our life and what we have control over, what we don't have control over. You know, I think when I was drinking, I thought I had a lot more control than I thought. In reality, I had very little control. You know, when I was drinking, I tended to kind of react to situations rather than respond in a proper way. And on top of that, the alcohol kind of messed up my mind. It didn't allow me to respond correctly, and my reactions were just not in the proper way. Or, you know, maybe I would just drink my problems away, or at least think I was drinking my problems away. In reality, I was just pushing them further back. You know, and you know, then I got sober, and here I am. I'm sober, and life's going better, and I think everything's under control because I got this. And no, life didn't get that much better. In fact, some things got worse. Because life, we just don't have much control over what things, about the outside things that happen. My mind did start to clear, and I did start to develop some control of things in my life because alcohol wasn't skewing my mind so much, and I could actually respond to situations a little better. And it was very, it's amazing what sobriety can give you as far as controlling your life. But still, what sobriety gave me more than just being able to control the situations is it gave me that clear mind, and it gave me new perspective on life to where I can accept the fact that I have no control over other people and situations, and I can only control me. And that's a huge part of sobriety, is just being able to have that acceptance of what I can do. Some people say, you know, keep your side of the street clean and let the other person worry about their side of the street. And it does hold true in most cases. Yeah. So great letter, Marcus.
Thanks. Yeah, it's funny because when we realize that we don't have as much control as we thought, at first you would think that it's a very pride-blowing kind of thing, and it kind of is, but it's actually really liberating. You know, It's liberating to say, you know what, I can't control other people. One of the things I learned, because people are something we try to control. We try to get what we want. It's like, okay, you ask your boss for a raise. You're trying to control an outcome. You're trying your best to get a raise, and you should. If you think you deserve a raise, go for it. But the best you can do in life, when dealing with other people, is ask cooperation. Like I can come to Terry and I could be like, hey, you know what? I got this thing. I'm going to ask for your cooperation. Now I can go into it thinking I deserve this. I should have this. Terry should say this. He should react this way. But at the end of the day, all I can do is ask for cooperation. And he says no. That's his prerogative. He says yes. That's his prerogative. Right? So we have to look at it and really understand that there's things in life we can't control. So if you guys are tuning in, tell us your thoughts on the letter. If there's something that stood out to you, type it in the box. Let us know. What I find is oftentimes, even though me and Terry are on the screen, oftentimes you guys have some insight that we may or may not see. Right? Just because we're here talking doesn't mean that we're any different than you. Doesn't mean that we've arrived and you're waiting to arrive. It just means we're all here trying to help each other. And sometimes a perspective in there might help me, might help Terry, might help your fellow people in recovery or trying to stay sober or just kind of searching this thing out. But I think that'll really help each other, get that going. But I think for me, the main thing is just understanding and relaxing and being okay with life's uncertainty. I used to flip out over everything. When I was a preacher, I used to be borderline conspiracy theorist on everything. Then, I kind of brought that into other parts of my life. And I kind of looked at these things and I was like, okay, I have to either control it or I have to know some inside info about it. I can't just be one of the people. And I kind of learned, what, no matter what, you are always just one of the people. You're one of 8 billion people on this earth. And I was describing it the other day to someone who was asking, and I was like, what I think I deserve now in sobriety is what the worst person, the person who has it the worst on this earth. Like, that's what I deserve. So you look at the kid in India who has to, like, wade through garbage and, bare feet to find enough money to get food. That's what we deserve, right? Because you didn't choose where you were born. He didn't choose where he's born. So right. We deserve as much as the least among us. And if we have that outlook, everything's a blessing. And you're not going to flip out over not getting a new car or a new house or a job promotion or losing your job or whatever, because you're going to understand that life is so much more than the things that society places value on, right? I believe that everyone listening is more than what they've earned. You're more than your job. You're more than your status. You're more than your sobriety numbers, right? Oh, I got 10 years sobriety. You're more than that, right? It's not just about that. That's good, and we should stay sober. But the fact of the matter is these things that we put meaning behind. And it's like you watch people go through life and they have this backpack and they're ready to open the backpack of, when I was 10, I was abused. When I was this happened to me. I'm the victim or I'm great. I always get what I want. And they have this backpack of beliefs that they take through life with them, and it weighs them down. And they can't live the way life was meant to be, which is free and open and accepting and tolerant and loving of yourself and others. You got to look at it that way, because we got to be able to accept ourselves and others. So hopefully that makes sense to everyone.
It does. It doesn't matter where you are in sobriety as far as the numbers go. I was talking to a person yesterday, and they had 25 years of sobriety, and they started drinking, and they kept drinking again. Life got horrible. They kept going for another 10 years. Now they got about 3 years of sobriety again, and their life was going well. They were doing everything right. And, something happened. They were a victim of a situation they didn't have control over. Maybe they made some of the wrong decisions there. For that person in particular, it was a back surgery, and he got addicted to the opiates, and that led back to the alcohol. But things happen, and sometimes we just have to try and get that help that we need to help steer us in the right direction. And he's happy that he's happy now. He's bummed out that he lost everything in his life and all that. But he still looks back on it with the positive attitude, and that was the way it was supposed to happen, or whatever, and he's okay with it.
Yeah.
But and for all of us, any of us that are having trouble with alcohol, or had trouble and are not drinking anymore, we're just one drink away. And that one drink, and even if that one drink doesn't affect us right away, maybe that one drink will turn to the second drink in a week, because that one drink, there's no bad repercussions, and maybe can handle drinking for a month, maybe a week, maybe a year. But if you're an alcoholic, it's gonna get worse. I mean, that's pretty much guaranteed. That's happened every time. I've never seen an alcoholic be able to start drinking again in a controlled way. And part of that, that's accepting our control in life, and that we don't have control over this disease. Well, we do if we keep on working on our sobriety. So we have a limited amount of control, but once we start drinking, that control goes out the window. But yeah,
I
so.
think I think something interesting too, and I'd like to get your take on it because I think mine's. I don't know if mine's different or what. I've heard a lot of opinions on it. One thing I look at and I've always wondered about, because when I first was trying to get sober in rehab, I was obsessed with relapse. I was like, I don't want to. I was terrified of it. I was like, I don't want to relapse. How do I not? And I went around and I asked all the counselors, like, how do you not relapse? How do you not relapse? How do I not relapse? And one of the things I look at is a lot of people who relapse, they end up being gone for a while, right? They're like, okay, I relapsed, and okay, 5 years later, you see them, and they're like, wow, that was like a 5-year mess up. And I look at it, and I wonder if the continued relapse is due to faulty thinking and a belief about what that first drink meant. Okay, now we're not saying go take it or try it or whatever. Don't. Why screw with it? Why mess with something that's working, right? I mean, if you're sober, you're sober. Don't mess with it. We had someone on here saying, oh, what about non-alcoholic beers? Well, if you have a question about it, you probably shouldn't do it. Like if a guy's like, hey, I have no problem with non-alcoholic beers, blah, blah, maybe he can do that. For me, I question it, so I'm like, let's not do that. But I look at it, and we have this baggage about, I have this mindset of, okay, you're there at the bar, you're sitting there having your soda, and all of a sudden you just order something, right? And you're like, wow, I just downed my favorite drink because whatever reason, day was bad, sun was good, whatever, right? Anything. And I wonder if the prolonged relapse comes because of the belief behind I have failed, I lost everything, right? And we look at it, and it's interesting to me because hopefully this doesn't happen, but let's say tomorrow I went out and I drank, right? And we look at it, it's like, okay, that situation happens, I sit there, I have my drink. And I look at it, and I can look at it two ways. One way, I could say, well, I've failed, I'm in relapse mode, this is terrible, this is what's supposed to happen, I lost 4 years of sobriety, and here I am. Or I could look at it and say, well, I didn't lose 4 years of experience in sobriety, I still have that. I messed up, I had a drink. Let's get back into the mode of the 4 years instead of prolonging it. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does. Okay, here's another guy I talked to, or I heard him talk yesterday. And this guy was like, so he's got a couple of years now of sobriety. He had he got sober in his 20 years old or something like that. And he had a decade of sobriety, and he started drinking again. And you know what? And he said he doesn't really know a reason why he started drinking, other than the fact that he stopped working on sobriety daily, and just kind of had a good life and just kind of went with that, and thought he was good. But anyways, what his point was that he drank for another 15 years, something like that. He had no repercussions until the end, but he had his job, he had money, he had material things. But he did say one thing: he pushed his family away because all he wanted to do was sit in the house and drink. And they were calling him on that, like, "What are you doing?" So he just, and if anybody crossed him, he just pushed him out of his life, and eventually he isolated. And the thing that finally stopped him was just he had a major medical incident, and basically, if he's going to drink again, he was going to die, and he wanted to keep living. So he did end up getting sober. But relapse, it's a mystery why some people. I see a lot of people that relapse all the time. It's like I hear them and they're like, yeah, I got 30 days of sobriety, or I got 10 days. I'm like, what? Really? Again? And they've relapsed many, many times. And I want to think that maybe when they get sober, they're just going back to doing the same things that they did last time they got sober, and they didn't change something. I don't know if that's the case or not. I would think that maybe they're trying to do the same thing and didn't make some major change that they needed to. I wish I could sit them all down and interview them to figure it out, but it's got to be deeply or deep rooted in mind, and that for me getting sober was it was deep down inside. I told everybody I was an alcoholic, but I kept drinking, and I did. It was fine for me. Some people will define alcoholism as your drinking's become unmanageable, or your life has become unmanageable, and you can't control your drinking. And I felt my life was manageable, even though I was sitting in the house and in a dark house and not doing anything except drinking. And it had to get deep down in my heart, I guess, in my soul, to decide to quit drinking. And that's what got me to that point. And after that, getting sober and staying sober was easier. I don't want to say that it was easy. It kind of was, because I was willing to do everything I needed to do. I had the same fears, and I don't as much anymore, but I had the same fears of relapse. I still definitely have a fear of relapse, because I see how little it takes to relapse.
Yeah.
But I just did everything I possibly could. I did the AA meetings. I did the hospital. I did what everybody told me to do, the doctors, everything, and just got the help I needed. And it's kind of what I still do today. I'm able to back off a little bit here and there, but I still have to do something every day. It's important. So yeah, relapse is a scary thing.
Yeah, it's interesting too, because I think a lot of it comes down to the motivator of why you're sober today, why you're staying sober. Because I remember in the beginning, my sobriety was mostly fear-based. Like I was like, okay, I don't want to go fuck up again and end up drunk, right? I don't want to lose things. I don't want to end this. I don't want to end up in the mental hospital again. It was primarily fear-based. Then when I got to maybe a year and a half, I noticed it started to change. And it started to change into more gratitude, more contentment. I was able to sit and be content no matter what was going on. I was just kind of chill, And I see some people who are sober for a long time. And I did a video here on my channel about dry drunk, and I got all kinds of shit for that video. I got some comments today. Some guy thought I was unattractive and wondered how I had kids. So, I don't know. Some people are interesting, but I have to remind myself that a lot of people who watch these are probably drunk. So I'm like, okay. But it begs the question of like, why are you watching these videos? Which is interesting. But at any rate, that video got a lot of flack because what I did is I talked about dry drunk in a different type of mindset. Dry drunk, as I think AA states it, is, you would probably know better. Do you know the actual definition as AA does?
Well, a dry drunk is just somebody that just isn't drinking at all, and that's it. They're not doing anything for their sobriety. They're not trying to, well, for AA purposes, it would be somebody that's not working the AA program. But there are a lot of other programs, and you can, but it would be somebody that's not working on their sobriety on that daily basis. I mean, you really have to do something. I know, Marcus, I know you don't go to the AA meetings, but you do stuff for your sobriety every day. You listen to your tapes and you do reading, you do these videos,
Hmm.
you do other videos, and you try to help other people that are struggling with alcohol. And that's what I try to do every day too. It keeps us grounded and reminds us that we do have a disease in us. So it's a dry drunk is just gonna, they quit drinking, and then some of the um, symptoms. I don't know if you would call them
Hmm.
symptoms, but a dry drunk tends to be angry.
Yeah.
They're they one person I was talking to, they were talking about how they didn't drink for many years, and they're still sober today, but for almost a decade they didn't have any sort of sobriety program, and she was angry all the time, every moment of every day, even though she didn't drink, she was thinking about a drink. And that could also be a dry drunk. That's not necessarily what one is, but that's how she was. It was just going through life angry and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's why I think it's really all about a change of life. Because what I look at the difference is a dry drunk can't drink. A sober person doesn't want to drink or doesn't have to drink. That's what I was
yeah, there you
looking
go.
for. So you got these people going around, and in the beginning of my sobriety, it was like, well, that kind of sucks in life. I can't drink. I can't have that. I see a guy drinking, and I'm like, I can't drink. And all of a sudden, my thought process changed to, I really don't want to.
Right.
Like, because you can do whatever the hell you want. I mean,
Sure.
let's face it, we're adults. We can drink. You can continue to do what you want to do. No one's stopping you. Like, there is no flag that's above your head that says alcoholic everywhere you go until someone invents some kind of cyber robot thing that does that, which, I don't know, someone might be working on that. But, we got to look at it and be like, okay, I'm in control of that part of my life. I'm in control of, do I position myself as, damn, poor me, I can't drink? Look at the mindset there. Or, I don't want to drink. I don't want to drink because right now, maybe not everything's perfect in my life, but I'm okay. Right? And that's where it comes from. And if that makes sense to you guys, let me know by typing it in the box. Because that was a big motivator for me, is whether I'm fear-based or whether I'm gratitude-based.
Yeah.
Right? Am I going through life fear-based? Oh, man, I can't do that. I can't do this. I got to do that. What if? Or, hey, you know what? Today, because I was an alcoholic so bad, today, I'm not facing those things.
Exactly.
Today, I woke up and I wasn't hungover and feeling like crap, checking my car to see if I ran something over. I wasn't obsessing trying to find, 108-degree box wines in the garage that I hid. And I mean, come on, I don't even care if you're an alcoholic. Box wine just sucks, right?
Yeah.
And they weren't even the good ones. They were those little dollar ones you get at the thing in whatever
Didn't matter. You
drugstore or
were
whatever.
doing it
Yeah.
for the taste.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, and to me, I went to vodka, and I hate vodka. I think that's the most terrible drink in the world. But I went to that because it was easy to mask, and that's what I had. But today I didn't have to worry about that. Today I didn't have to go search the garage. I didn't have to search the bottom of the trash bin to see if I threw one out with that much in it. I didn't have to do that today. I didn't have to walk in my sweats to go buy alcohol while my wife was gone somewhere, so she didn't come back in time to see me drink it. I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to go through I didn't wake up today thinking, what the hell's wrong with me? I didn't wake up today and be miserable about my life. I didn't wake up today saying, oh man, that bad thing happened. My life is worthless.
Right.
Right? And I got bad things that happen in my life. I'm sure people have it a lot worse. Some people have it a lot better. But we got to look at it and say, today I woke up. And I want everyone who's here today, who's sober today, to say 3 things in the box that you didn't have to do today, that you're grateful for. Like, hey, I didn't have to wake up hungover. My spouse didn't yell at me last night because I passed out or fell asleep or whatever you call it. My kids are safe to be around me now. I was at a point where they were like, we're young. If Dad's drunk, he really can't take care of us. Leave the stove on, leave the barbecue on, boom, there goes,
Yeah.
your house or your apartment structure or whatever. Fall asleep with a cigar in your mouth, burn
Sure.
something up. Luckily, this office chair was bought in sobriety. My other one was burned up quite a bit. And I'm clumsy enough without alcohol, so. But go ahead, type that in. If you're listening in, I want you to think of 3 things that you woke up today and you're like, man, I'm glad. I am grateful that I didn't have them. If you got some, Terry, you can start us off too.
Well, I'm grateful that I didn't leave an egg boiling on the stove for 45 minutes like I did when I was drinking and
I'm not a.
almost catch the house on fire. I'm sure most alcoholics have some story of forgetting. I've forgotten the barbecue on many, many times. It just runs out of gas, the next morning. But, the I think the biggest thing I'm grateful for is that I don't have to take that walk down to the liquor store, and I can live life since I have worked on sobriety, since I've been sober, and I work on it every day. I can walk down the street or walk through Costco or the supermarket with my head held high. If I see somebody from the past, I don't have to go hide around the next aisle and try and figure out where they're going, so I don't have to run into them and talk to them, and I don't have to eat breath mints so that people don't think I've been drinking when it's the middle of the day and I have been drinking since 5 a.m.
Yeah.
It's amazing what sobriety gives you. Just I have the power now to do what I want. Even though I don't control that much in my life, I do have certain control in my life and I can accomplish those things that I want to accomplish. When I just rode my bike around Lake Tahoe, that was great, and I was able to train for it and do it, and it felt good. It wasn't painful. It was huge. Yesterday, this made me chuckle because yesterday I saw the news that California is legal, marijuana is legal in California now. That got voted passed this year. So there's these regulations that are going to kick in, I don't know, in a week or something like that. So they were mentioning on the news that marijuana is going to be really cheap for the next week in California. And here I am thinking, I love that stuff. I should get some. It's really cheap. And but I'm like, that would just lead me to a drink.
Yeah.
And there's just no way. Before, when I first got sober, I'd be like, I can't do that. I mean, that would lead me to a drink. That just scares the hell out of me. Now it's more of a choice. I don't want to do that because I know I love the life I have now being sober, and I don't want it, and I don't want to drink. So I'm gonna do whatever I can do. One is not go buy cheap weed. So.
That, and it's not very productive. So.
No.
But yeah, I was gonna say I'm not a chef like you are, but I think the egg was done.
Yeah.
After 45 minutes. All right, let's take.
Jason, I totally know what you're saying about don't have to hide the bottles and cans, man. I hid them. Well, I tried hiding everywhere, and then I just learned that under the house was the place because my wife wouldn't go under there. But yeah, I'm not feeling guilty about your actions. Absolutely, you can wake up after going to a party, and you know what you said. You didn't do anything silly. But Miss Dog Lover, you don't have to take a dozen empty wine bottles to the recycling bin. Yeah, didn't wake up exhausted, dehydrated. Sure, absolutely, those are great. Well, most everybody has hiding the empty bottles. Yeah, that is a common thing. Hiding that drinking. I used to hide it in my bicycling water bottles because I rode a bike everywhere. Just put vodka in there. Nobody knows it's vodka. They just think it's water.
Good
Yeah,
thing you
there's all
didn't
sorts
smoke.
of tricks. We've done them all.
Yep. Good thing you didn't smoke with that water bottle. So how come Terry's water bottle's on fire?
Yeah.
Yeah, and one that Requiem says, he says, I didn't wake up to a rapid heartbeat wondering should I call an ambulance. That's a big one for me. I
Yeah.
mean, the alcoholic never really sleeps normal because the patterns are just off. And that's one of the things I'm grateful now is I sleep normal. I feel better. Um, my heart's not pounding out of my chest. I'm not sweating all the time because I'm anxious or whatever. I'm not jonesing for a drink. I remember jonesing for a drink was terrible. I mean, you're
Yeah.
pining for it, and thinking about it. All the time you spent thinking about planning. I remember I was like, okay, I'm gonna go to this party thing, and there's a lot of family there, and I don't want them to question me on my drinking, so I'm gonna
Right.
get 2 sheets in before I arrive, and then I'll
Exactly.
be able to have this much. And it never worked. I mean, it was 3 sheets in, and I just finished the job at the place. But I remember like timing it, and do I have enough? Is that gonna last? How much am I gonna need tonight? What if it's a bad night?
Yep.
Bad night. You got to have a couple of bottles. You can't just have one. Um, Timing it. I had it timed. The time that my wife left to get the kids to the time she came home, I had it where I can go to liquor store, I can pound some two big ones, and I'd be good. And then she was still okay with me having a few, and then I could still have my few, right? But I wasn't okay with having a few because I was an alcoholic, and
Right.
alcoholics are never okay with having a few. And I don't miss that at all. And that's what I do when I think about maybe I should go have a beer. It's been 4 years. I mean, come on. It's practically in fish and chips anyway. And these are the things your mind says. And I remember the things I'm grateful for and the things I don't want. And I remember to myself, I'm like, hey, yeah, you want to try one? That's where it led you last time. Is it worth it?
Right.
For what? A taste that you probably don't even acquire anymore. You're not even acquired to it anymore. And you got to look at that and say, there's so much more. There's so much more. And I don't drink because I don't want to call the ambulance. I don't want to hide the bottles. I don't want to wake up with a rapid heartbeat. I don't want to put them in the recycling bin. I don't want to be like Miss Dog Lover who said, keeping promises. That's a big one.
Right.
I promise I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm not going to drink tonight. I'm not going to be hungover. I'm only going to have one glass. And broken promises. You feel like crap. You're like, man, that sucks. Why can't I stay sober? Wondering what's wrong with me.
Exactly. It just
and I-
destroys your self-worth.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
But yeah, just yeah, spending the whole day worrying. That's what I used to do. Well, I didn't spend the whole day worried. I spent the whole day drinking in the end. That's all I did to take care of that worry is, and walking down, yeah, go to the liquor store saying, last bottle I'm buying. And then the next day, same thing. Walk down to the liquor store, say the same thing.
Yeah.
It's horrible that there's so much to be grateful for being sober. And
so much.
Go ahead.
So much to not drink for.
Yeah.
I have so many reasons to not drink. And what are the reasons to drink? I mean, really, get down to the taste. I want to feel better about a problem, which drinking never really does that. It's like a temporary thing. So you just got to look at that. All right, so any last minute comments, questions, or concerns, type them in the box, and we'll take those and then let you on your merry way. I hope you guys are enjoying these letters, and I hope you guys looks like a lot of you guys, like Requiem just said 30 days sober. Congrats on that. Congrats on you guys, whether you have a day, whether you have 100 years, we're all in it together. We just want a better life. We just don't want to have these things. And I find it helpful to keep these cards close, right? And then when you go there and you're tempted, you're like, hey, do I want to wake up feeling that way? Do I want to say another bottle again? Do I want to do this? Do I want to ruin a good thing I got going right now? Right? You got 30 days, you got 4 years, you got whatever. Do you want to ruin a good thing? I sure as hell don't.
I don't either.
Yeah. So. And by the way, California pot's not like it was when I grew up anymore. Yeah, that stuff, man. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Well, For me, I'm not able to do anything. And I choose not to do any mind altering substances. It's just not living life clean and sober is just way too worth it to risk anything that would get me back to alcohol. So
Exactly.
that's the way I choose to be.
Yeah. Or
And
even just make you a pothead. Like, I don't
right,
want to do that either. I like who I am now, and when I drank, I didn't,
right,
and that for me is a big thing. To like who I am and to be okay with it, and to be okay with my mistakes. To be, hey, yeah, you know what? I did screw that up. Or hey, you know what? I'm not perfect. Right? I'm okay. Um, and I notice in my own life, my body is very sensitive to whatever I put in it, whether it's too many Cokes. I notice that Diet Coke makes me irritable as hell. I don't know why, but it does. Um, and, certain things. Coffee, I went to decaf about 2 years ago. Game changer for me and my anxiety issues. That was a total game changer. And I learned that, the chemical change in your mind, for me, really only lasts about 15 minutes. Right? So, like, for 15 minutes, if my wife comes in and it just calls me every name in the book and I'm just like, fuck, and I go drink, I will have 15 minutes of relief from the thoughts about that argument. Because us alcoholics, we don't just get in arguments. We have to think about the argument before it happens. We have to think about it while it's happening. And then afterward, we got to think about what we argued about. And,
the overanalyzing brain.
Oh, totally. And we look at that, and when you drink and pause that, for 15 minutes you get a relief. But I'm going to bet, from my 4 years of being sober, that the 15 minutes is more the 15 minutes than it is the drink. Just 15 minutes of mellowing out and saying, hey, you know what? That's not my bag. I'm going to take the things I own. Sure, I didn't do the dishes or whatever, right? Take the thing I own, and I'm going to let the other stuff pass. And now I say to myself, hey, I don't have to dwell on that.
Right.
It's going to be what it is, right? Me dwelling on it has never made anything better. Never once. I've never sat and dwelled on an argument and fixed the situation. It's only when I find peace of mind and I say, hey, I'm going to be okay, that the situation gets fixed. Kind of automatically, So hopefully you guys find that to do. Also, all right, you want to take Requiem?
Sure. Recently, my biggest concern is how to talk myself out of being sober. I try to reach people when I get a craving, but I can't seem to just convince myself I don't need alcohol anymore. Yeah, that's a tough one when cravings happen. Marcus just talked about the 15 minutes. Try to get busy and do something. That's what I generally do. Is I try to do an activity, or that would just be a simple activity like I don't know, do the dishes, mowing the lawn. I don't know what you like to do. Like for me, it's go on a bike ride or hike or walk the dogs or something like that. But I just try to get busy with something else. I tell you, people have told me you need to call somebody. Make sure you got phone numbers and pick up that phone. And the phone people have trouble picking up that 200-pound phone and calling people. And yeah, that's me. And I think if I was to start drinking, that would be the last thing I would do, is call somebody for help. I'd be too embarrassed. It's a difficult thing to call people for help, but you could find somewhere where there's other sober alcoholics and just go hang out with them and talk to them. So that's also a good method to use. But yeah, it's a difficult thing when the mind wants to talk us out of being sober. That alcoholism is sitting back there in our brain, and it's waiting. It's doing push-ups. You know what they say? What I found really interesting is that they say if an alcoholic is to start drinking again, I've heard it said that your alcoholism will come back right to where it was pretty quickly, pretty immediately. But I've also heard that's even more interesting, that it can be with people like you never stopped drinking. So the alcoholism continues to progress. It just doesn't do the damage to your body when you stop drinking. but the mental aspect of alcoholism continues to progress even though you're not drinking. So if you were to have 10 years sober and started drinking again, it would be like you didn't quit for those 10 years, and you'd be that much worse off. That mental craving, that mental obsession would be there, and it would just take a little bit of time for the physical craving to kick in at that same level. So it's a difficult thing, and we have to do whatever we can.
Well, it's interesting too because I look at it this way. It's kind of like your brain's thought pattern. So, like when I talk about the thoughts going down rivers, when you carve a spot in your brain, metaphorically, or I don't know how it works physically, I'm not in there. Never seen my brain, so I don't even know if I have one. But at any rate, when you carve these tunnels, it makes it easy for something to go down. And when you carve the tunnels for alcoholism, what happens is your thoughts want to take that path, right? Neurons that fire together, wire together, or whatever they say. And when your neurons are like that, right, it says alcohol is the solution, alcohol is the solution, alcohol is the solution. And now when you're trying to get sober, you're trying to create new thoughts and new channels and new places for the thoughts to go down. But the old ones never get erased, right? It's like the Grand Canyon. If I make another Grand Canyon on top of it, the Grand Canyon's still under there, right? Doesn't matter if I make the river go this way on the new Grand Canyon, the old one's still going this way. And if you take a drink or even your thoughts, right? If I have a thought that's like, well, got a fight with the spouse, I must be worthless. Boom, goes down that old thought process, right? And that old thought process is there all the time. And that thought process has been proven in your mind to take you to places you don't want to go. Like Requiem, hiding the bottles, waking up with a rapid heartbeat, wondering if you should call an ambulance. That's where the thoughts are going to take you. Needing to have something to drink while at work. That's where the thoughts are going to take you. And they're there. 10 years sober, that channel's still there. All it takes is one thought process. And when I read about relapse, it starts in the mind first. Oftentimes, relapse starts before you even pick up a drink. It starts with a thought process. And what you got to do is you got to learn to be on guard against those thoughts. Recognize them. Say, oh, well, that's Marcus's brain. Now, instead of getting anxious and saying, oh man, I'm anxious. Everyone's watching me. I feel like shit. What the hell's wrong with me? Everyone else is fine. Something must be fucked up with me. I need a drink to get rid of anxiety. That's where my thought process goes. Now, I know now when I get anxious. Like I went to a couple of meetings the other week, enjoyed them. I was like, okay, I hadn't been in a while. I really enjoyed them. Great group. And I'm anxious. And I've been to hundreds of AA meetings back when I was starting to get sober, and I'm still anxious. Now, I get anxious and I say, well, that's just my chemical body being anxious. And I don't let it go down that path because that path is going to lead me down. And your brain always wants answers to questions, right? So like if you ask yourself, how do I make a polka dotted elephant? Okay, you're going to picture it and you're going to start to think, oh, well, I'll get some paint. I think an elephant would look good in green polka dots. So that's what you're going to have it. Why do I always want to drink? Your brain's going to say, well, I'll tell you why. You're going to feel better. Your anxiety's going to go away. Fighting with the spouse? When you're drunk, you always win every fight, metaphorically speaking. And those are the things, and your brain's going to answer it. And so when someone like Requiem comes in and he says, talk myself out of being sober, you have all the tools to stay sober. You have all the reasons to stay sober. Mm-hmm. We just got to look at it and be like, hey, you know what? That's my mind doing what it's going to do. Of course it wants to drink. That's been the solution for years.
Yep.
Totally normal. Like having cravings is totally normal. 100%, right? You've trained your brain to look at that. So you got to really focus on it. So yeah, embrace your sobriety, embrace your new life. Start to challenge yourself to deal with things sober, right? How do I deal with this sober? How do I deal with a job loss or loss of a family member? You know, when I first got sober, we lost a lot of family members. One was totally unexpected out of the blue. Couple we kind of knew about, but you know, it was difficult and I had to learn to get through them. And I learned getting through them sober was the best gift I ever had. I was actually
Absolutely.
able to honor the people. I was actually able to understand. Some of them I didn't go to funerals, and I was okay with that. I was like, okay, I can't make it. Doesn't mean anything. Just means I didn't make it. Um, I used to be able. My old thought process would say, "You didn't attend the funeral. You hate everyone. You're a terrible person. What the hell's the matter with you?" And I would have gone out of guilt or whatever. But now I found new ways. I found ways of keeping the memory of people with me. And I wouldn't have had that if I had continued drinking. So, all right. So we'll take a couple other questions or comments if you guys want to do that, and then we'll wrap up in a couple minutes here. So I hope you guys enjoyed the letter today and today's topic.
Good stuff.
All right, cool. So I think we're about ready to go. Congrats to the sober people. If you're still struggling, reach out for help, talk to someone, watch videos on the channel here. Do what you got to do to stay sober, because I know that you're just right over that hill of being to a place of, hey, I enjoy sobriety. So awesome. Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you next week.
Right on. Thank you, everybody.